I've learned to be a Christian woman from other women. And I've learned that in this small town local church context. As much as I've appreciated so many things that I've listened to and so many books that I've read, there's no shortcut for that. There's no shortcut for those relationships.
If you have Christian women in your life, they don't need to be perfect, even if they aren't godly from A to Z.
Right.
But what about all the ones that they are being godly in? Imitate those women. And I really think the Lord blesses that kind of honoring.
Well, welcome to the Grimké podcast. Great to have all you here. Two guests with us today. We have Abigail Dodds and Tilly Dillehay, and then, as usual, Brian Laughlin.
Thankful to be here as always.
Talking women's ministry today, and thought I'd give y'all a chance to introduce yourselves since you're new to our audience. So, you first, Abigail?
Yeah, I'm Abigail Dodds, like you said. I'm married to my husband, Tom. We have 5 kids from 21 down to 11. And we're in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. So this was a fun change to come out here to Virginia and see your humid weather. And
I'm about to say a little warmer, warmer this time of year.
It's a little bit. We're not too far off. We're maybe in the 80s today.
In the winter, you're way off.
Way off in the winter, yes.
What's it like in the evenings?
At home right now?
Yeah.
I mean, it cools down. It's probably not super different.
That's so great.
I don't know.
I
60,
loathe
70.
the summers.
Do you?
Virginia, yeah, it's not my favorite. We get 4 nice seasons, and this one is not my favorite. So Minnesota sounds dreamy in the summer.
My husband,
in the summer.
Anything above
the winter.
65, it's a little warm for him.
Oh, yes. That's great.
Yeah. He and Brian.
We would be fast friends then.
Yep.
Yes. I like
He's Minnesota
Arctic designation.
Through and through.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then Tilly?
Well, I just came from exactly the same humidity level in Tennessee, so just stepped off the plane like, it's home. So I'm in Middle Tennessee. My husband's a pastor in a small town about an hour outside of Nashville, and we have 4 kids, 10 and under, and we're just homeschooling and busy. And
wow, busy.
And both of you are very involved in women's ministry. And
well. Yes and no.
Right.
We just planted a church, so we have no women's ministry formally.
There are women.
But there are women. Yes, that's right. And I have daughters.
And daughters,
so,
right.
It is a huge part of my life in that more just down-to-earth sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a few months into the church plant.
Yes. Yeah, we are. I think we're just in month 7 now.
Wow.
That's great. Joe and I are both church planters.
Yes.
A few years ago now.
Years ago.
Almost a couple decades, actually. So
yes,
we vaguely remember those years.
Vaguely remember 7 months in.
7 months in.
Maybe I've forgotten them on purpose.
Yes,
those were not easy months.
A lot in the memory hole.
Great, but not easy.
True.
Yes. I do feel the Lord has been like a little ridiculous in His grace and kindness to us, because it has been very smooth. Like certain doors just opened. The building we're in this historic courthouse that we rent very cheaply, and they do all the setup and tear down, and it's a lovely, beautiful space. And
so great.
The men who planted have known each other, some of them for decades, and so there's just it has been very wonderful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I can't complain at all.
Yeah. Well, a lot of joy and a lot of newness in planting. So yeah.
I mean, it's like having a baby or something. You just kind of like we haven't planted, but I can imagine or starting a business or something where you're just like, I'm completely I can't think about anything. Like I don't have a straight thought in my head. I can imagine.
Yes. It's a great analogy because it's constant care 24/7 and it requires all your attention. And that can go on for a good little bit of time. The toddler years in a plant can take can actually be a long time.
Yeah.
So
even just being pastor's wife, like you see all kinds of things, unique challenges and joys and all those things. So.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, now we're talking women's ministry. Now, maybe we should reframe it as ministry to women. Different churches have, maybe high program, maybe low program, maybe no program, but unless it's a church of only men, which I've never been to that church.
I would not want to go to that church.
No.
I agree. That'd be very scary.
Like Jamestown or something.
That absolutely would be.
I'm sure there are examples in history somewhere.
Yeah, what was the colony where they colonized? It was entirely men. They had to ship some women in because it was chaos.
That sounds
It was
terrible.
Jamestown.
Was it Jamestown?
It was Jamestown?
At first,
Okay.
yes.
Wow.
The men
Okay.
came across first
That's
and
right.
got things set up.
And they invented bowling or something.
We need the ladies.
I saw a video during July 4th recently that essentially said, welcome to Virginia, the home of America, and obviously we started with the male colony, so that's kind of scary.
It's like a 3-month experiment, and then
They were like, if we want to keep this going, we should really bring some women in
women
here.
on the ships, and
Not a lot of forethought there.
come across. So as we're like surveying the landscape of ministry to women today, what are some things that you all see are going well?
Well, I see in a lot of women very much a hunger for God's word. I see just a desire to be obeying him. I regularly will get messages or comments from women just really wanting advice, practical advice on how to live through some season, some difficulty, some stage. And they seem eager to learn, to grow, to want to walk in Christ's way. I feel, maybe this is part of a vibe shift. It seems to me that there's less offendedness among certain women, less sensitivity about certain things.
Right, about how you have to talk about a thing
Yes.
or what you're allowed to talk about.
Particularly as we've talked about marriage more regularly, I've been surprised that women are so hungry for some of the harder truths because I think they find them more helpful.
Yeah.
They just want to know,
How do I do it?
how do I do it? You don't need to like dance around it. Just tell me how to do it. Yeah.
Right. And I wonder, I don't totally understand the vibe shift stuff and all that, but I do think I am seeing a willingness to talk more about homemaking, vocation,
Yes.
and to talk about like parenting and marriage in a different way, maybe just because it's like, well, this isn't really working too well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think we've seen the same thing even in our church over the last few years, where there's a lot more receptivity on the whole to just talk forthright about these areas, and especially as the culture kind of ignores, and they're almost like a banned category of discussion. Even you can't even, a lot of the neutrality's moved out of the cultural public square. And so a lot of those topics are taboo. The taboos are being torn down. There's a lot more openness.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes I wonder too, with the gospel-centered movement, and in the best way, I think a lot of our awareness was raised to the centrality of the gospel, the goodness of the gospel. Like, wow, this is huge. This is important, and wanting to unite with other people who think similarly about, like, say, preaching the gospel to ourselves. That became a very common phrase among women for a long time. And I think part of what's happening now might just be a very practical next step of, okay, we've got this beautiful thing called the gospel. What does it look like to practice living like a Christian, really? And so it's not that we're leaving the gospel behind, but it's almost like in Hebrews where the writer says we need to go on from the elementary doctrine. In order to really live out all these things, we shouldn't keep repeating necessarily the things that we know and have been foundational. The foundation remains, and we continue on in our growth. And I think that is sometimes what I'm hearing, or what I'm sensing is just, I would like some practical, real life ways to apply the things I know.
great.
Yeah, almost like a whole church culture that's moving from the first half of an epistle to the second half of an epistle.
That is almost
great.
what
Yes.
it feels like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The indicative to the imperative.
Yeah. And I'm sure that will come with its own dangers and eventual pendulum.
Right. Yeah, and some of the
adjustment.
dangers, like a cycle, because I remember some of those things in the 80s and 90s church
Absolutely.
cultures that I was growing up in. A lot of indicatives that were sometimes made up.
Right.
Yes. A lot of imperatives made up. So,
But it does seem like a unique moment, because I mean, we're not saying that, women who were reaching Christian maturity 20 years ago didn't love the Bible or weren't.
Absolutely.
But it does seem like a unique moment where women are particularly hungering for the word and trying to figure out what's it look like to live for Christ as a woman right now, very practically, and a lot of good resources. I feel like there's been an explosion of great resources right now, publishing houses and those kinds of, and podcasts.
Right.
You all have a podcast together.
Yeah, we do.
How'd that start?
Tilly should tell that.
You want me to tell that? Was it 2020? Because I kind of feel like it was.
Yeah,
It was right in the middle of 2020.
probably right around there.
Justin, who was on Twitter, was familiar with Abigail on Twitter, I think, and I think I'd read your first book, and we met in passing one time, but we didn't really connect even or have a full conversation. But I emailed her out of the blue and just said, "Hey, I have an idea for a podcast. There's this old song called 'Keep the Home Fires Burning.'
Yep.
I sang in a community theater play when I was in high school.
I don't know if I remember that.
I don't think I even ever mentioned that to you.
Amazing.
Keep the home fires. It was like a 1940s musical.
kind of a call to arms for the
Yeah.
women
Bumper
left at
on your
home.
podcast.
You know,
You should just have that in the beginning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
It's on
so
there.
there's
It
a
might be a
John
little
McCormick
terrifying.
recording of it from World War One, I think.
Yes, it's
and,
World War I.
and that's what we use as our
That's awesome.
music. But anyway, so home fires, not house fires, which
I
is
know
when your
I've had
house
some
burns down.
confusion around that.
So anyway,
Subtle
but
difference.
there was just like a I don't know why we trusted each other, except we knew some things about each other from other people.
Yeah, well, because we creeped around and did due diligence.
Yeah, my husband creeped around enough that I knew you were.
It was
okay.
a little funny on my end to just get this
Yeah.
random
don't know
person
why
emailing saying, "Here is a podcast idea," and she had it very developed, and she kind of pitched it like, "I think we actually are really we are filling this particular little niche, and we're probably the similar." And I'm like, "Huh." So I think I ordered your book like right then.
Yeah,
And
let me see if this is true.
I will find out.
Yeah.
what this woman
That's
is
right.
about.
Well,
And
it was a friendship that literally began on the air.
Wow.
Like we did not really know each other, and we just
I mean, we
kind
talked
of
for a few times.
That's
before,
right.
And
And then we just were like, I think this is a good fit.
yeah.
Amazing. And just started and developed a friendship on the podcast.
Yeah, you guys came and stayed with us,
Yeah.
Justin and Tilly, and there was enough mutual connections where it wasn't like you're just flying blind with literally someone
Right.
who you
Right.
don't understand where they fall or what they're like. So
Sure.
those things were all there and
Yeah,
grease the wheels.
but it's been sweet because it's a common project, which is a great way to have a friendship.
Yes.
and to be working on something together.
Is your idea 5 years ago of what it would be, what it is now?
I don't think we planned it literally one season at a
season.
time,
One
and we would
season.
always. It was not a high priority thing in either of our lives.
Yeah,
really.
we're like,
We were
let's just try this and we'll do it.
let's
for
do like
this many
15
episodes and it'll be
episodes.
done.
Yeah, and then we'll see what
it
happens
could be really
next year.
helpful. Yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you've also written some books. We have two here, Atypical Woman by Abigail, and your most recent, My Dear Hemlock, which are fantastic books that I hope that our listeners will pick up and read. Now, you don't start a podcast or write books unless you have something to say and you want to provide some maybe helpful corrective feedback, fruitful conversations to women. So what are some of the things you're trying to, let's say, counteract, but how are you trying to contribute to the conversation right now around ministry to women and what you write and what you say in your podcast?
That's good.
You have anything?
Go ahead.
Well, I think with Hemlock especially, and I would say this has been a pattern in writing for me. My first book was on envy, a really gross topic, ugly topic.
That we don't talk about enough.
Right. That I didn't see anyone really talking about at
Right.
the
No.
time. And that had been a huge personal struggle. So I tell all these kind of gross stories about myself in that book. And in Hemlock, there's a lot of, nitty gritty women specific sin in there.
Yeah.
And you can tell personal stories, and that's fine. I'm obviously willing to do that, but I really liked being able to do this fictional kind of device because it did allow me to get in on some women's heart issues that I was seeing, and I couldn't figure out how to get in there. And telling the story allowed me to really get in there with a lot of specificity, some of which is invented specificity, but it helps to flesh the thing out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess I thought these are things that are hard, some of them hard to talk about or hard to get a handle on. But I think they're real threats.
Yeah.
And and this allowed me to do that. So, you know, I wanted to be helpful.
Through that genre of kind of a C.S. Lewis screw tape,
Right.
elder demon talking to a younger demon. And that gives you a lot of freedom to be able to talk about things rather than, hey, are you dealing with this?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of my writing, and I'm just realizing that we're kind of two opposite sides of the coin, which is maybe why this works so well.
Yep.
I think usually I'm trying to say, what is the positive biblical vision of womanhood? And can I just say that clearly for people?
Yeah.
And so it'll touch on sin things, but really I'm just trying to say, where have the errors come in that's distorting what godly womanhood is supposed to be? Let's correct those just errors in thinking, which you know we talked about earlier, like, oh, I'm not just a woman, I'm a human,
Right.
you know, which I really think was a big error that had kind of infiltrated and gotten funky for a lot of women who now all of a sudden are thinking that being a woman
Right.
is beneath them.
Right.
You know,
Or you're like momentarily or circumstantially a woman, but not all the time.
Right,
Yes.
right,
Right.
exactly. Or this idea that being a Christian transcends your womanhood. It's like, well, in Christ, you know, I
There
can
is
kind of
neither
leave that
male nor
behind.
female.
You know?
Right, right.
And so I've always been trying to say, like, okay, being a woman is good. And it's good because God says it is. And here's what the design is. And here's how it can look and function. And here's what we should love about it because this is how God has done it.
Yeah.
And so I think that has driven
like
this.
a positive vision for womanhood and as a way of correcting.
That isn't the weird positive vision that some people do when they're trying to empower women, that basically ends up making maleness the standard for
Right.
womanhood, or even just a very like pride-filled sort of like, women are more than enough, they're amazing. Like this kind of false like puffing up of women.
Right.
I just, we don't want to do any of that, but like just trying to say clearly, this is how the Lord talks about it, and this is how we should be thinking about it. And then from there, I think fleshing out things like, here's our temptations, here's the different ways this works out real practically in the nitty gritty. I feel like being able to say that clearly gives room for those conversations to make more sense sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel that in conversation when we're in conversation, which this is so true in the local church too. You have these different personalities, you have these different ways of communicating. But like as an example, you know, Abigail's clear, she's precise in her language. I tend to be more creative and kind of emotive maybe, but I just feel like that combination of personalities tends to be able to get a real full circle around a topic, you know.
That's great.
So I find it helpful.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comprehensive kind of vision of biblical womanhood needs encouragement. You might say in the church at this point, or at least needs some refreshing and reminders and filling in a lot of the things that have been overlooked, especially over the past several years. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's what I loved about reading both of your books, and both of you did it in very, like you said, very different genres. Because Abigail, your book is so encouraging to women, talking about womanhood. But like you said, without having to puff up, just say, this is how God has made us. This is what Christ is doing to sanctify us. Being a woman is great, and you can celebrate, every stage and phase and challenge and joy of being a woman. So that joyful note was great. I think Tilly, and what you did, the way you were able to describe what women deal with, a woman could say, that's me. Which I think is also important because it doesn't broad brush. It's not just, hey, we deal with pride, or my marriage is on the rocks in general. Like, it's very specific, so women can say, yes, that's me. So I think both the joy and also they're speaking to me and where I am I think is important for anyone.
Yeah. Well, even the fiction utilizing the imaginative mediums, helps, I think, capture the heart where those types of sin struggles may be, that sometimes a more direct approach isn't always as received well. So the imagination is able to capture our hearts in different ways, which I think is very helpful for men and women as well. So
yeah. Which I think, so maybe we can move from there, because in general we can think this is how you disciple Christians, which is true. There's some things that carry over. As y'all think about specific things you think that you need to focus on or emphasize when you're ministering to women, what kinds of things come up in your mind?
I often think about, I think it's easy to look to someone like that's written a book, or someone who's speaking or doing something more public, and think, okay, I'm going to make that the thing I'm going to run after as a woman, or like this person out there. And you neglect the local women in your church who are older than you, and you might see their warts, and you might see a few things about them that rub you the wrong way, and you don't really like how they mentioned
metaphorical warts, or like
A little both.
could be both. But I think this is just human nature to do this, to kind of latch on to something that's far away and kind of easy to idealize, versus being able to learn from someone like your own mother, even, or your own mother-in-law, and exchange those in-person, real life, flesh and blood people for something else. And I think that's where we really want everything we write to be a tool in the context of the local church, and to be used in that way. But I do think just one thing I noticed generationally with young women is they may have a Christian mother or a Christian mother-in-law, but I think as young women are trying to find their feet as a wife and mother, trying to find their feet as their own woman, they can quickly sort of come up with all the things that their own mother or their mother-in-law did wrong, or quickly come up with the reasons why, like, that's causes some friction. There's some tension there. And so really just to say, if you have Christian women in your life, they don't need to be perfect, and they've done some things that you can imitate, even if they aren't godly from A to Z.
Right.
But what about all the ones that they are being godly in? Imitate those women. And I really think the Lord blesses that kind of honoring the women who are right there in front of you. You know, that's like one of the new covenant promises, is like the hearts of the young men will be turned towards the fathers, and the fathers to the sons. So this generational, like, we honor one another, is part of what we should be working out. And so I would just really encourage that in the young women who are wanting to grow, wanting to be discipled. Just humble yourself enough to learn from the women who are there locally. And then, of course, give thanks for tools. I mean, I have been so discipled by women I've never met, so I'm not denigrating that. Obviously, we're writing books for that purpose. Right. And give thanks for it, and soak up all you can, but just recognize that it's a woman's credibility to teach you and for you to learn from her is really seen in the testimony of her life lived. Right. That's her resume. And so look at women's resumes based on the testimony of their life, their own, how they've walked through their marriage, their mothering, their difficult circumstances, and the godliness that you see there, and then learn in accord with what you've seen.
That's great. It's what's very apparent as you read through your book. I mean, it's meant to be a wonderful tool to the local church to facilitate local church ministry, especially women ministering to women. So it's full of examples of how you've seen that in your own life, and therefore works towards helping women look in the right direction for those things. So they're thankful for the tools like you guys have provided, but at the same time, the primary place in which they're really going to be built up and rich is in their local church. It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I can barely even add to that, honestly, because that's right where my mind goes. It's just, and it's the same dynamic you see with people in the church who want to be pastored by, a big, wonderful preacher that they can get all of his sermons online, but they're not willing to submit to their local pastor. It's the same kind of thing, even though obviously you're not submitting to your local Titus 2 woman. I've learned to be a Christian woman from other women. And I've learned that in this small town local church context. And as much as I've appreciated so many things that I've listened to and so many books that I've read, there's no shortcut for that. There's no shortcut for those relationships. And there's a kind of patience and work of submitting yourself to listen to a person who, even is like, it's your mother-in-law who you have this and this and this issue. You can always list the things that this or that person isn't what
doing
you're trying to
right.
imitate. Right. But the fact is, she is doing a lot of things probably better than you. She knows a lot of things you don't know.
Yeah.
And you've got to be humble enough to sit under some of those things, and it's different. It's more work than listening to a podcast, it's a different kind of work.
Yeah.
And it's less, consumerish. It's relationship. It's real.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had this in the, it's just related, but I know a lot of, especially women in our church would love to hear how you guys model that and prioritize that, which I know, even talking with you guys, how you actually do that. So I think a lot of folks, when they read the resources, they think, oh, you guys are obviously on the road constantly on book tours and, teaching all the women across the country. And so how do you actually, put these things together and prioritize rightly the things that you guys are teaching?
Well, we were just talking about this morning, actually, because we don't travel much. I forgot apparently how to be on a plane. I missed my flight yesterday.
But you're here.
I made it. Had to get my real ID going in order to fly. But we hate traveling alone. Like we're learning that every time we go, and I do enjoy speaking. And I, maybe twice a year, I'll go and do a women's retreat for a local church I can drive to from Tennessee. But having to make decisions about how to do that going forward, my husband and I have had a lot of conversations this last month about how to handle those things. And we've basically landed on, we're coming as a family. Like, nice. If you want us to come, this is how we're coming. Yeah. And that's how we're gonna drive across America and see some of these places we read about in homeschool, but that for me was the kind of key that turned to make me understand, this is the direction we're going to take with any kind of travel.
That's great.
But basically until now, it's been me home in my little church. And if I'm somewhere else, I feel like it's nice to meet people and it's great to be built up and to see other churches thriving. And I love that. But my relationships are at home, and that's where in my, with my family, these are my people. I can't be somewhere else. I just can't be. So,
and it's the same for me. I mean, we've just set very clear parameters around what we think is even helpful. I think what ends up happening, and it's this weird thing because it can be enticing to have invitations places or to think, I could really help, but you end up oddly undermining your message, because you're doing something that can start to undermine the reality of the thing you're trying to get other women to be doing. And so just I always have to come back to I don't like traveling and I really do just love to be home. I love my people. I love where we are. And so it isn't enticing in that sense. But you have to guard it like any human against things like flattery, things like just feeling puffed up about something because someone thinks you did something
like I'm so necessary. And church needs me.
And the local church is the antidote to that because there are wiser women locally who are not writing books. There are women whose the testimony of their life is absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, and yet they are not being put out there. And so it just is the antidote in every way. And and so just
and that whole the prophet being without honor in their own hometown, the people at your church are not impressed with you,
and they should
and it's like, and praise God, they're not.
That's great.
So I want you to talk to maybe, because you mentioned younger women needing to seek out older women. Sometimes you have older women who are very capable of discipling. They may not feel like they are. They might not know how to invest in younger women.
Yes.
What would be your advice to an older woman who has lived some, has grown in Christ, does have something to share, but maybe is reluctant to take on that mantle of discipling younger women?
I think it's often for the younger woman, one way she can help that older woman or make it less weird is don't expect something formal.
Okay.
And so some of the women I learned the most from, they would never be like, oh yeah, we had a Titus 2 relationship. Like
we did a 10-week discipleship program.
Yes.
I wasn't like coming with my request of, will you meet with me every week for this amount of time? And it was more just, I spotted somebody and I'm like, they're doing something.
I like what she's doing there.
That interaction they had with their kids and the way she was able to discipline and like her composure, her dignity. There's something I just really like. The smell coming off that gal, whatever it is. And then I just watch. I watch.
And maybe ask some questions, go and just be like, okay, your girls are best friends and they're in their 20s. What did you do to foster those, that best friend relationship between sisters?
That's great.
The specific thing that you're admiring. And that also helps with the whole like, well, I'd like to take this, but not this. And it's like, okay, well, take this then, go take that thing that you see that's good. And I don't have any kind of opposed feeling to the formal, like, okay, well, you do know, actually the thing I'm trying to take from you is that you know the Bible really well, or,
how do you do that?
So how do you do that? Or can we do 6 weeks of coffee at our house while my baby's napping, like, fit it into life, fit it into real life. Don't feel like you've got to escape real life in order to do discipleship or receive discipleship. Sometimes I like a commitment that's for a season, and that is defined in that way. You kind of know, everyone knows what they're committing to.
Yeah, the clarity helps. And I think for older women, sometimes you need to know that you probably have a lot more to offer than you realize.
For sure.
Sometimes we can forget what we've learned, or we forget what we know. It's in there. And so you kind of have to stir it up and like jog your memory, and try and rewind the tapes and go back in time and try and put yourself, what was that like again when I was parenting these 3 toddlers? Or what was that like again when I lived through this? Because it's become part of the background, and it can be so useful to the younger women, for the women who are past that phase, to really take some time, jog your memory, remind yourself of the grace God provided and how he provided it, and then share it. You just
be bold and just don't, it's not about you. No, it's not about you being so great. It's just, this is how the church is supposed to work. And it means you making space in your life and then getting over that fear and just offering yourself.
Yeah. And it glorifies
she will be so
God.
grateful.
Yeah. It does. It honors him, because you're telling his story of his work in you, and you're letting your life serve that. And it really is just service. I find that's just a helpful reminder. Like, this is just service, and we can all serve. So,
do you have any thoughts about this? I feel like I hear this question even in a local church. Which side of Titus 2 am I on? Am I the older woman, or am I not?
That's right.
I know. And I feel like we kind of talk about this. What I've started to think about this is that basically every woman is in some relationship where they're one or the other. Like almost any woman has passed.
When put in context with another woman.
Compared with the person that you're with, you have, and it may even be that there's a little of, you're influencing each other, but you are more experienced than somebody that you're with. It may be that teenage girl. I see a single woman in our church my age, one of my dear friends, and she's discipling the teenagers, really faithfully. Yeah. And, she's not an older woman, but she's taking up that mantle, So be ready to take the mantle, and then be ready to receive humbly.
That's great. I think it's a lot of times you hear the language of, who's your Paul and who's your Timothy. So sometimes I know that's utilized. So it's very simple. Everybody has somebody who's like a Paul to them, pouring in. They also have somebody who's younger they're pouring into. Yeah. So
I think one of the themes, which is I'd love to hear y'all comment on, which is interesting when you read Christian women's books, is that a lot of them, and both of you did this, focus on how a woman grows through different life stages, which a lot of Christian men's books don't do. But it seems like women's books especially focus on, okay, when you're young, before you're married, when you have children, when you're middle-aged. So why do you think women's books tend to focus on specific discipleship needs in different stages of life?
Could just be that men's books are very weak, and we actually need to grow in that area.
I think we really could.
No, I think maybe, but I think that just women's vocation is so specific to season, because our vocation changes so much. It has to do with people, with children, with husband, with family, and people. And so it changes by its nature. And just, you see it physically too, where we're getting pregnant and then not pregnant, and that change, we're just used to that. So I think there's an instinct to want to just speak in directly to this is right where you're at, because the work changes so much.
Yeah.
And the needs, and then the sin struggles. But yeah, it might be an overemphasis. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think it's just
it's
so much based on what our bodies are going through and even able to go through. You're a young woman, and your body changes, hormones change, things happen, and then all of a sudden you're in years of fertility or potential fertility and marriage and motherhood, and then it's just a very visible physical things that happen to you as a woman that really hormonally in many ways just impact your day-to-day living. And then you come out of that phase, and again, more changes happen. And so it truly is like your own body just gives you such very specific stages of life that every woman is subject to. Nobody gets out of it. And it drives so much of your day-to-day living even, it affects things. And so I think that's so much of the reasons behind the specific stage writing, is because we can so easily see our stages kind of broken out, even just by what our physical bodies allow and don't allow, and the way our hormones work. And a
lot of crises.
Yeah.
Men just have the one, right? The midlife.
I mean, Joe, maybe you can speak to that. Is that what
I'm 8 months older than you. So.
Right. I feel like we need to
give you an 8-month preview.
It's utterly
so in other
true,
words, he's the Paul and you're the Timothy.
Yes, I've been learning a lot along the way.
Yes, we debate about that a lot.
I can't beat the chronology, so it is what it is. But we need to do a men's podcast maybe on that.
We should.
Stages of a man's life.
Maybe we can learn something from the women's books.
Sure.
Men go through stages not quite the same, right? Definitely go through stages and phases. And I just noticed it in you talking about a Titus 2 woman thinking back on, what was that like? And how can I help somebody go through that? I think men could do the same. And older men, what was it like when I was the dad of toddlers? Because it's different now.
It's very true. Yeah, I remember a lot of things as a young husband and father that now have a lot of younger folks in the church come up, and they're like, they're very immersed in the moment, and it's very stressful. And then now it's so I just smile at this point and say, it's okay.
The whole thing just gets glossed over.
Rose colored.
That was great.
That wasn't bad. This is great.
Well, part of it is just the whole going on a bear hunt book. Have you guys read that?
Yeah.
I'm going on a bear hunt.
Yes, I remember that.
Can't go around it. Can't go under it. Have to go through it. And I feel like that it's kind of tragic in a way, because you get through it and then people are like on the other side still having to go through it, and they're like, could use some help. And it's like the only help you can offer is just kind of like, well, you're going to have to go through it. There is some help, but it's like childbirth or something, because it's like you just can't do it for another person.
That's right,
they've got to kind of walk it, and we can encourage and cheerlead, and that's
there is a finish line. We made it somehow, so you can do it as well. So
absolutely
great.
One of the things I think when we talked about on other podcasts is what used to be a very solid, ubiquitous complementarianism in Reformed evangelicalism is somewhat fracturing and moving now. You see even women sliding more towards egalitarian views. What do you think's behind that?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, sin, probably.
Good answer.
That's great. That's right. Yeah.
We our hearts are just so prone to want to tell us what we want to hear, and so we make Scripture say things a little differently than what they may actually be saying, and it can be hard in a culture that's immersed in they've invested a lot in women being no different than men. We've got decades now of this feminist lie and investment, and they've gone whole hog into the lie. And so now
you're just getting the leftovers.
Right.
Yeah, just getting the trickle down.
Yeah.
I do think I'm feeling this and seeing this more, but I think there's a deep resentment over male passivity that is leading directly to that egalitarianism in the church, I think there's a lot of like frustrated wives who are so angry at their husbands' lack of leadership, and the only thing to do is like put on the pants, I guess, and
take over,
start leading. You know.
I think it's a wonderful insight, because I think a lot of broader. If you have a thinning overall of the message in a lot of churches that doesn't speak specifically to what it looks like to be a man and a woman, then the natural result in men failing to fulfill the roles that God's called them to fulfill will result in resentment based on their passivity and a reaction in the other direction. So a lot of this is kind of codependent in terms of how it relates in the overall congregation. So much more broader. Kind of a broader syncretism or something like that leads the church to cut off a lot of the more, I wouldn't say clear edges in Scripture. And therefore, it actually ends up in unfortunate weakness and discipleship immaturity in the church, and then has these reactionary components that could be avoided if actually discipleship for men and women was more thoroughly biblical and robust, you might say.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is both. It's an interdependent sin problem, because there's I think there is passivity, and that's a problem. But I think a lot of women, even Christian women, come into their marriages with kind of a unspoken, unnoticed. They don't know that there's these feminist tendencies that they're bringing in.
Right.
And so when,
for sure,
if a man like makes his first attempt and she, cuts it off, undermines it, or just even her manner of speaking.
Yeah, like just her instincts are bad, and she doesn't know
and
that they
she doesn't know the instincts are wrong.
Yeah.
Or, that's how her mom
you would just say like, well, I believe in even the ones who would be like totally complimentary on paper,
right,
don't really know what it sounds like or looks like. And so there's these ways of speaking to their husbands, especially, that turn him into a baby,
right?
Or just or an irritable guy, or just someone who's like not fun to keep house for anymore. And so then it's like, well, I got to go find my good work to do, because this house is not really where it's happening. This is not a good place to be.
Yeah,
and
it is. A lot of churches, I think, unintentionally to the point, lack some of the earthy application that also can help men and women, especially men, as the example you guys use, not be a baby. But I think a lot of churches can be nervous that's maybe they stay at more of a principled, abstract kind of level in their teaching, and don't actually,
because they don't want to put any weight on somebody that's not.
Yes, they don't want to bind conscience, which is good. However, good biblically applied wisdom to how do we actually live in certain customs that accord in life, I think are something that's needed and missing sometimes in those churches.
And that's that hunger that you were talking about earlier in the conversation. Just that I feel like we're seeing this hunger with young people who are just like, okay, well, how do you make bread?
Yeah.
Okay, well, how do you submit to a husband? How do you raise children? I saw Seth Meyers, is that his name? There's a guy, SNL guy or something.
Late night talk show
guy. Yes, so I watched on the plane that I finally made it onto.
Okay, he was on at that hour. So there you go.
I was watching a Seth Meyers comedy hour, I guess, from a year ago, and he was talking about how his dad used to just yell at the kids, just tell them like, be quiet, and they listen to him. And we have a different way of doing it, and he's like, and sometimes I'm just like, my dad comes over, yells at my kids, and I'm like, you get them, old man. Because what we're doing is not working.
It's not working.
Right.
And I'm just like, wow,
Yeah. I think the other piece, I'm not sure how this relates to your question, because I've lost track of what it was.
That's okay. Keep going.
One piece I'm noticing is, I hope that there's starting to be a realization that people want a Christian life that is fulfilling, like that makes sense. They know what they're supposed to do. Women want to know, what am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to be a Christian woman? men want to know that. They want children who are going to walk with the Lord. They're trying to figure it out. And I'm hoping that what's becoming a realization is that your marriage, obviously your relationship with Christ is primary, but right next to that is your marriage relationship. And that I think a lot of women skip over that and then just go to like, I'm going to be a good mom. And so I think in a lot of Christian homes where things are starting to go sideways or this or that, I'm hoping there's becoming an awareness that like this marriage relationship is the heart of our home. And if we are at odds, if we aren't reconciled, if we aren't in fellowship together and joyful in the Lord together, God can help your kids apart from that, but it will be outside of his normal means. He wants to do it through your godly marriage. Like God's design is that this godly, loving union of two people that is the picture of his gospel would be the means and the facility that these young children are raised up in the nurture of the Lord. And I just think, I'm hoping that that's becoming more of a realization in the world of Christian women and publishing, that like, okay, we got to get first things first. And yes, the parenting matters, but it's you're going to be coming at it the wrong direction with this piece out of place. So, and I just think the more we've talked about marriage, the more I've realized what a hunger point, just a pressure point. And that it seems to be the thing that's a little off. Because women feel fine with their kids in some ways. Like they're working out the parenting, they're struggling through the toddler years.
They know that's work, but they don't really know how to improve this thing over here. Yeah, and I just, the more I've thought about this the last few years, I feel more comfortable just saying like, if you're not happy in your marriage, stop everything else and go there. Like God actually cares whether you like your husband.
Yes.
You feel like that's some kind of a luxury item. I think that's part of that whole, like, well, I can have joy without being a happy Christian, that just like, it should be normal for you to enjoy being around your husband and for y'all to laugh together, for you to be happy to see each other. Right. Like that, not only is that normal, but you can pray for that and seek that not as a luxury item, but as an essential. Like it's a big deal. Big. God cares about this. And I think I used to kind of think of that as like, well, that would be extra specially nice for somebody. But they don't need that. They need Christ and, they need to stay married, but they may not enjoy it,
Like, it's very principled, but we might be able to do both.
I love that both of you mention that, like highlight that in what you write and what you say in your podcast, because often as pastors, when we find out a marriage isn't doing well, it's way down the road. Like you don't get in early on when it's like you should like each other. You should enjoy. You should focus on each other, not just parenting the kids. So I think we need more Christians just saying marriage is super important. It is the heart of the home. It is a picture of Christ and his bride. Like focus there. Even if it's not right, stop what you're doing and focus on that.
Right.
Yeah, and relative to the surrounding culture, I think when the church talks about these things in very specific fashion, it feels abnormal because we're so starved in the surrounding culture for any of this conversation. We're not really sure what a marriage is in culture. We're not sure what a woman is. We're not sure what a man is. We definitely don't understand what roles may accord therein. And so even a basic conversation may feel, oh, you guys are always talking about this. And actually it's more of a relative statement of everyone in the surrounding culture is starving for this conversation. Of course, Christians are talking about it continuously. So you have to kind of as pastors and disciple makers or ministering to folks have to embrace those types of comments may come as you actually seek to build people up in these areas. Sometimes sometimes accusations come like you meddle too much and those sorts of things, but I don't think that's actually the case. I think it's more
a little more meddling.
Look, we need more meddling. Godly, loving, care and discipleship.
I think that's a good word for women, ministering to women too. Like meddling it's fine. If you're an older woman, you're worried about meddling with a younger woman that
Please
you're with.
do.
Like, go ahead and
meddle away.
Please
go
do.
ahead and meddle. She'll be happy. She's waiting for you to meddle in most cases.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know we could go on much longer and talk about these things, but thank you for coming and helping us understand ministry to women a little bit more. Thank you for what you all are doing. And thanks so much.
Thank you
welcome.
guys.
Thanks for having us.